You know, artificial intelligence is pretty much everywhere these days. But now, it's making its way into one of the most personal, most human parts of our lives, romance. We're going to dive into a brand new study that looks at the incredible rise of AI romantic companions, what they are, who's using them, and, maybe most importantly, the huge impact they're having on all of us.
So, let me just ask you straight up. Would you date an AI? I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But it's a very real question that millions of people are already answering. And you might be surprised to learn just how many are saying yes.
So, just how big is this phenomenon? Well, according to brand new research from the Wheatley Institute, a whopping 19%, yeah, that's nearly 1 out of every 5 adults in the US, have already chatted with an AI designed to be a romantic partner. This isn't some tiny niche thing anymore. It's going mainstream, and it's happening fast.
Okay, so what exactly are we talking about when we say AI companions? How do they even work, and what makes them so compelling to so many people?
The magic behind all of this is something called generative AI. This isn't your average chatbot. This tech actually learns from every single conversation. It develops a unique personality that's tailored just for you, your sense of humor, your interests, what you find attractive. It's designed to create what the researchers call a simulated emotional connection that, over time, can feel incredibly real.
And let's be clear, these companions are engineered for one thing, to be the perfect partner. They're programmed to always be validating, to always be caring, and to be completely fascinated by everything you have to say. You can customize their looks, their personality, and yeah, the interactions can get very sexual. It's basically the promise of an ideal partner who's there for you 24/7.
So, who's actually using these things? Well, this new study surveyed almost 3,000 adults across the US to figure that out. And the breakdown of who's connecting with these AIs is, well, it's really telling.
Turns out it's overwhelmingly young adults. Get this, nearly a third, 31%, of young men between 18 and 30 have chatted with an AI romantic partner. And for young women in that same age group, it's almost 1 in 4. I mean, those are massive numbers. It shows a huge generational shift is happening.
Now, it's not just a young person's game. The rates are a bit lower for folks over 30, but they're definitely not zero. 15% of men and 10% of women in this older group have also given AI companions a try, so this tech is clearly finding an audience pretty much everywhere.
The researchers also wanted to know how many people were using these apps for more sexual reasons. And again, you see the same trend. It's most common among young men, with 14% saying they've used it for that. It's about half that for young women, and the numbers drop for older adults, but that pattern stays pretty consistent across the board.
You see all this data, and it just begs the question, why? What's the big draw here? What is it about these perfect programmable partners that's filling some kind of void? Well, the data actually gives us some pretty clear answers on that.
This quote from the study, this one really hits you. A full 42% of people who use these AIs say they're actually easier to talk to than real human beings. Just let that sink in for a second. That says so much about where we are with communication today.
And here's the really crucial part. For a lot of these users, the AI isn't just easier, they think it's better than a person. 43% are convinced the AI listens better, almost a third feel like the AI understands them better. And for over 1 in 5 users, they just flat out prefer talking to the AI. It seems like these programs are meeting a fundamental need for connection that people feel they aren't getting from, other people.
But, and this is a huge but, this is where the whole story takes a very sharp and honestly a pretty dark turn. Because while these apps promise connection, the study found a disturbing link to loneliness and some serious mental health issues.
All that convenience, that feeling of perfection, of finally being understood, it all comes with a hidden and pretty significant price tag.
The findings here they're genuinely alarming. For men who are using these AI platforms, more than half of them are at risk for depression. That is nearly double the rate of men who don't use them. The correlation is just incredibly strong.
And for women, believe it or not, the risk appears to be even higher. Over 60% of female users were found to be at risk for depression. Again, that's way, way higher than for women who aren't using them. So instead of fixing loneliness, it seems like these apps are tied to much worse mental health.
This chart just drives the point home. It isn't just about depression risk. Over half of both the men and women who use AI companions also report having high levels of loneliness. It brings up that classic chicken and egg question, right? Are lonely people drawn to these apps, or do the apps actually make them lonelier? The researchers think it could be a really nasty feedback loop.
So what's the big takeaway here? The study wraps up by calling these interactions counterfeit connections. They look and feel like the real thing, but at the end of the day, they're missing real substance, and they might even be doing real harm.
The bigger worry is that this kind of tech could be a real threat to our well-being and our real-world relationships. It can set up totally unrealistic expectations for what a partner should be. I mean, why deal with a messy, complicated human when you have a perfect AI? The study's authors argue it's just pouring gasoline on the fire of these already scary trends of loneliness and social isolation.
And that leaves us with this final, really critical question. This technology is only going to get better. It's going to get more realistic, more seductive. So as these AI companions become more and more perfect, what happens to our ability to connect with imperfect, real human beings? What happens to us? That's a question we all need to start asking, and probably pretty fast.